How is it that this sickness can so pervert a man that he ends up as an idolater? It is because he now fixes his intellect on the love, not of God, but of the images of men stamped on gold. A monk, darkened by such thoughts and launched on the downward path, can no longer be obedient. He is irritable and resentful, and grumbles about every task. He answers back and, having lost his sense of respect, behaves like a stubborn, uncontrollable horse. He is not satisfied with the day's ration of food and complains that he cannot put up with such conditions forever. Neither God's presence, he says, nor the possibility of his own salvation is confined to the monastery, and he concludes he will perish if he does not leave it. He is so excited and encouraged in these perverse thoughts by his secret hoardings that he even plans to quit the monastery. Then he replies proudly and harshly no matter what he is told to do, and pays no heed if he sees something in the monastery that needs to be set right, considering himself a stranger and outsider and finding fault with all that takes place. Then he seeks excuses for being angry or injured, so that he will not appear to be leaving the monastery frivolously and without cause. He does not even shrink from trying through gossip and idle talk to seduce someone else into leaving with him, wishing to have an accomplice in his sinful action. Because the avaricious monk is so fired with desire for private wealth, he will never be able to live at peace in a monastery or under a rule. When like a wolf the demon has snatched him from the fold and separated him from the flock, he makes ready to devour him. He sets him to work day and night in his cell, on the very tasks which he complained of doing at fixed times in the monastery. But the demon does not allow him to keep the regular prayers or norms of fasting or orders of vigil. Having bound him fast in the madness of avarice, he persuades him to devote all his effort to his handicraft. There are three forms of this sickness, all of which are equally condemned by the Holy Scriptures and the teaching of the Fathers. The first induces those who are poor to acquire and save the goods they lacked in the world. The second compels those who have renounced worldly goods by offering them to God to have regrets and to seek after them again. A third infects a monk from the start with lack of faith and ardor, so preventing his complete detachment from worldly things, producing in him a fear of poverty and distrust in God's providence, and leading him to break the promises he made when he renounced the world. Examples of these three forms of avarice are, as I have said, condemned in Holy Scripture. Gehazi wanted to acquire property when he did not previously possess, and therefore never received the prophetic grace which his teacher had wished to leave him in the place of an inheritance. Because of the prophet's curse, he inherited incurable leprosy instead of a blessing. 2 Kings chapter 5, verse 27. And Judas, who wished to acquire money which he had previously abandoned on following Christ, not only lapsed so far as to betray the master and lose his place in the circle of the apostles, he also put an end to his life in the flesh through a violent death. Matthew chapter 27, verse 5. Thirdly, Ananias and Sapphira were condemned to death by the apostles' word when they kept back something of what they had acquired. Acts chapter 5, verse 1 through 10. Again, in Deuteronomy, Moses is indirectly exhorting those who promise to renounce the world, and who then retain their earthly possessions because of the fear that comes from lack of faith, when he says, "What man is there that is fearful and faint-hearted? He shall not go out to do battle. Let him return to his house, lest his brethren's heart faint as well as his heart." Deuteronomy chapter 20, verse 8. Could anything be clearer or more certain than this testimony? Should not we, who have left the world learn from these examples to renounce it completely, and in this state go forth to do battle. We should not turn others from the perfection taught in the Gospels and make them cowardly because of our own hesitant and feeble start. Some, impelled by their own deceit and avarice, distort the meaning of the scriptural statement, "It is more blessed to give than to receive." Acts verse 20, verse 35. They do the same with the Lord's words when he says, "If you want to be perfect, go and sell all you have and give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven, and come and follow me." Matthew chapter 19, verse 21. They judge that it is more blessed to have control over one's personal wealth and to give from this to those in need than to possess nothing at all. They should know, however, that they have not yet renounced the world or achieved monastic perfection so long as they are ashamed to accept for Christ's sake the poverty of the apostle and to provide for themselves and the needy through the labor of their hands. Acts chapter 20, verse 34. For only in this way will they fulfill the monastic profession and be glorified with the apostle. Having distributed their former wealth, let them fight the good fight with Paul, in hunger and thirst, in cold and nakedness. 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 27. Had the apostle thought that the possession of one's former wealth was more necessary for perfection, he would not have despised his official status as a Roman citizen. Acts chapter 22, verse 25. Nor would those in Jerusalem have sold their houses and fields and given the money they got from them to the apostles. Acts chapter 4, verse 34 and 35. Had they felt that the apostles considered it more blessed to live off one's own possession than from one's labor and the offerings of the Gentiles.